You were never lost. You were never wandering aimlessly, stumbling into chaos without reason. No, you were placed, positioned, set into motion by a force greater than you, greater than them, greater than all the tangled shadows they tried to weave around you. It was never coincidence. It was never chance. It was design. You see, when you entered their life, you were not just another name, another face, another pawn in their endless game of self-serving destruction. You were different. You carried something they couldn't understand, something they needed, yet feared. Light, strength, a depth of heart that exposed their hollowness without you ever trying. And that, right there, was the beginning of the war. Because to a narcissist, a soul like yours is both a fascination and a threat. They are drawn to it, like a moth to a flame, intoxicated by the warmth they cannot produce themselves. And yet, that same fire unsettles them, reminds them of everything they lack, everything they cannot become. They will not show it, of course. They will not admit that they saw something rare in you, something pure. Instead, they will set to work dismantling it, piece by piece, believing, foolishly, that if they can break you, they can silence the part of themselves that knows they will never be like you. But here is where their plan fails. They think they're the architects of your pain, the authors of your suffering. They believe they hold the pen, writing the script, bending the story to their will. But the truth? The truth is that you were sent not to be destroyed, but to reveal. To make clear the difference between love and control, between power and fear, between true strength and empty dominance. You see, God does not waste his warriors. He does not send his strongest into meaningless battles. If you found yourself in the presence of a narcissist, it is because you were meant to stand there, unshaken, as a testament to everything they could not break. They needed to see you. They needed to watch as you endured, as you loved, as you forgave, even when it was undeserved. They needed to witness what real power looks like, not the fragile, desperate grasping they mistake for strength. And in the end, they needed to realize that no matter how much they tried to reshape you, you remained who you were, whole, unmoved, untouched by the poison they had hoped to seep into your bones. Do not look back and question why you were chosen for this battle. Do not wonder if it was a mistake, if it was unfair, if you should have been spared. You were not sent to lose yourself. You were sent to remind them, if only for a fleeting moment, what truth looks like. Whether they accept it or not, whether they change or not, is no longer your burden. The purpose was never theirs to understand. It was yours to fulfill. And you did. They thought they had you, thought they could twist your kindness, pull your strings, mold you into something small, something weak, something they could control. They mistook your patience for permission, your silence for surrender. But what they never understood, what they were never meant to understand, is that real strength does not break. It bends, it weathers, it endures, but it does not shatter, and that is why they failed. You see, a narcissist does not seek love, they seek power. They do not desire connection, they crave dominance. Their greatest weapon is deception. Words wrapped in honey, laced with venom. Promises spoken in the dark, only to be broken in the light. They do not attack with force, but with erosion. Slowly, steadily, they chip away at the edges of who you are, hoping that one day there will be nothing left but the version of you they have crafted, a version that serves them, bends for them, belongs to them. But what they never saw coming was what lay beneath the surface. They saw your kindness, but not your resolve. They saw your love, but not the fire it was forged in. They thought they could manipulate you into weakness, not realizing that every betrayal, every lie, every act of selfishness was only refining something within you, something they could never touch. At first, you may have questioned yourself. Maybe you blamed yourself for their cruelty. Maybe you searched for ways to fix what was never broken in you, believing the lie that if you just gave more, endured more, bent a little further, they would finally see your worth. But in time, something changed. The weight of their manipulation no longer felt like your burden to carry. The endless cycle of giving and receiving nothing in return no longer felt like love. And the moment you saw the truth, the moment you realized that their actions were never about you, but about their own emptiness, was the moment their grip began to slip. You did not crumble, you did not fade, you stood. Not because it was easy, not because it was painless, but because somewhere deep inside you there was a strength they never accounted for. A strength they could not break, no matter how hard they tried. And in the end, that is why you won. Not because they apologized, not because they changed, not because they finally saw you for who you are, but because you saw yourself. You recognized that everything they tried to take from you was never theirs to begin with. You reclaimed what was always yours, your dignity, your peace, your power. They wanted to break you. Instead, they revealed the one thing they could never destroy, your unbreakable strength. They saw your light the moment you entered their life. It unsettled them. It was not the kind of light that could be ignored, not the dim flicker they were used to controlling. No, yours was something else, steady, unwavering, something they could neither replicate nor extinguish. And so, they did the only thing they knew how to do. They sought to smother it. At first, they praised it. They admired your kindness, your warmth, your ability to see the best in people. They mirrored it back at you, made you believe that they too carried the same light within them. But it was never real. It was only a reflection, a borrowed glow. And once they had you where they wanted, the truth began to show. Their darkness did not come all at once. It crept in, slow and quiet, disguised as love, as concern, as harmless flaws you convinced yourself you could endure. They wanted you to doubt, to question, to believe that the problem was not them, but you. They needed to make you feel smaller, so their shadow could feel larger. They needed to pull you into their world, where manipulation felt like love, where cruelty was excused, where you spent your days dimming yourself just to keep their comfort intact. But here is what they never understood. Light does not surrender to darkness. It does not shrink in its presence, does not beg for permission to exist. Light stands, unmoving, unchanged, and in its presence darkness has only two choices: retreat or be exposed. And that is where their plan unraveled. Because no matter how much they tried to distort you, no matter how often they gaslit you into believing that you were the problem, no matter how many times they made you question your worth, something in you refused to be lost. You see, they mistook your love for weakness, but it was never weakness. It was strength. It was power. The ability to hold compassion even in the face of cruelty. To remain true to yourself even when someone else tried to rewrite you. That was the battle they were never prepared for. They expected you to collapse, to surrender, to become just another name in their collection of broken souls. But you endured. And when the moment came when their darkness had pressed itself against you for too long, you did what light always does. You illuminated the truth. You saw them for who they were, stripped of the illusions, the lies, the facades. And once you saw it, you could never unsee it. That was the moment their power shattered. Because light does not fear darkness. It does not compromise, does not apologize for existing. It simply shines. And despite everything they did, despite every attempt to silence, suppress, and weaken you, your light remained, unshaken, unbroken. They built their world on illusion, every word, every act, every carefully orchestrated moment, designed to make you believe a lie, that you needed them, that without them you were somehow less, that they were the foundation beneath your feet, the air in your lungs, the reason you stood as tall as you did. But illusion is fragile. It cracks under the weight of truth. And the truth was this: they needed you. They needed your kindness, your patience, your willingness to believe in them even when they gave you every reason not to. They needed your steady presence to mask the chaos within them, needed your love to fill the emptiness they dared not face alone. And so they did what they have always done. They wove a story where they were the center, the prize, the irreplaceable force in your life. At first you believed it. Why wouldn't you? They played the role well, sometimes as the savior, sometimes as the victim, sometimes as the misunderstood soul that only you could reach. They made you think that walking away was never an option, that leaving them would be your loss, not theirs, that without them you would crumble. But illusions do not last forever. A moment came, maybe slowly, maybe all at once, where you saw it, the cracks in the mask, the emptiness behind the charm, the patterns, repeating like an old broken song. You started to recognize the manipulation, the way they twisted your kindness into obligation, the way they mistook your love for servitude. And then you saw the truth, clear and undeniable. It was never you who needed them. It was always them who needed you. Because without you, there was no audience for their performance. Without you, there was no one left to absorb the weight of their self-inflicted misery. No one left to validate the person they pretended to be. Without you, they were forced to face the one thing they spent their entire life running from: themselves. And that, right there, is where their power shattered. Because the moment you saw through the illusion, the moment you realized that they had nothing to offer but empty promises and borrowed reflections, the entire structure collapsed. Their words no longer carried weight. Their anger no longer instilled fear. Their presence no longer felt like something you had to hold on to. And so you let go, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally understood that caring was never meant to cost you yourself. You walked away not in defeat, but in quiet victory. Because while they spent their life constructing illusions, you were always the real thing. And they knew it. That's why they fought so hard to keep you in the dark. Because the truth is, they never wanted you to see just how much they needed you. And now that you have, there's no going back. You were never a victim. That was never the role you were meant to play. You were not sent into their life to be broken, to be used, to be discarded like all the others before you. No, you were sent as a lesson, a reminder of something they had long forgotten, or perhaps never truly understood. What real love looks like. what strength feels like when it does not need to dominate, when it does not demand, when it does not diminiate. From the moment you entered their world, they recognized something different about you. You didn't just give love, you were love. A force, a presence, an unwavering light that asked for nothing in return. And for a moment, they wanted to believe they could hold on to it, that they could possess it, own it, twist it into something that served only them. But that was their first mistake. Love like yours is not something that can be taken. It can only be received, understood, cherished, and they were never built to do that. So they did what they always do. They tested you. They pushed to see how far your kindness would stretch before it snapped. They mistook your patience for permission, your forgiveness for weakness. They thought if they could diminish you, chip away at you, make you question yourself, they could reshape you into something smaller, something that fit inside their world without disturbing the walls they had built. But what they failed to see, what they will never understand, is that love does not shrink. It does not fade just because it is unappreciated. Strength does not disappear just because it is unrecognized. You did not become less because they refused to see your worth. If anything, you became more. Because while they were busy trying to change you, you were revealing them. You were showing them what love should feel like, how trust should be given, how strength does not need cruelty to be powerful. You became the one thing they could not manipulate, the mirror they could not shatter, the proof that despite everything they had done, everything they had become, there was still something greater than them, something they could never touch. And when the time came when you had given all you could without losing yourself, you walked away, not as a victim, but as a lesson. They may never admit it. They may never change, but they will remember you. Long after you are gone, long after their games continue with someone else, there will be moments when they recall the one person who did not bend, did not break, did not become another reflection of their emptiness. You were sent not to be defeated, not to be consumed, but to leave a mark, a lesson that one day they might finally understand. Real love does not bow to manipulation, and real strength does not need to fight to prove itself. It simply is. You spent so much time waiting for the apology that would never come, for the moment of realization that would never arrive. You held on to the hope that one day they would see it, see you, see the love you gave, the patience you carried, the strength it took to endure them. But here is the truth, the hard, unshakable truth. Their recognition does not define you. Their change, their understanding, their regret, it is all irrelevant, because the victory was never in them. It was always in you. You see, they built a world where you were meant to seek their approval, to crave their validation like a starving man reaching for crumbs. They made you believe that your worth was something they had the power to give or withhold, that if they never acknowledged your pain, if they never admitted their cruelty, then somehow it was never real. But that was their illusion, not yours. Their silence does not erase what happened. Their indifference does not make you weak. Their lack of change does not mean you failed, because you did not walk away empty-handed. No, you left with something far greater than their understanding. You left with yourself. And that was always the point. There is a kind of freedom that only comes when you stop waiting, when you release the need for closure, for justice, for anything outside of yourself. It is the moment you realize that you do not need them to confirm your strength. You do not need them to acknowledge what they did to know that it was wrong. You do not need their remorse to heal. You do not need their love to feel whole. You rise not because they have seen the error of their ways, not because they have begged for forgiveness, not because they have finally given you the respect you always deserved. You rise despite the fact that they never will. You rise because their hold on you was never as strong as they wanted you to believe. You rise because you were never meant to live beneath their shadow, waiting for the light to break through. They will go on as they always have, spinning their stories, finding new people to weave into their web, continuing the same patterns, the same games. But you are free. And freedom is not in their hands. It is not found in their regret or their awakening. It is in the moment you step beyond them and realize that they were never the destination. This is your success, not in fixing them, not in proving anything to them, but in walking away whole and unbroken, knowing that their recognition was never the prize. You were, and you always will be. There was no grand farewell, no dramatic ending where they finally saw the truth, fell to their knees and begged you to stay. No moment of reckoning where they admitted their faults, where they whispered the words you longed to hear. You were right. I was wrong. I never deserved you. No, there was only silence. Because that is how these things always end. Not with fireworks, not with closure wrapped in a perfect bow, but with the quiet realization that you no longer belong in a place that once held you captive. And that is the real victory, the one they will never understand. The fact that you walked away, not broken, not bitter, not searching for revenge, but whole. You see, they thought they had you, thought they had built something strong enough to keep you tethered, thought their words, their guilt, their carefully crafted manipulation would always be enough to pull you back. But what they never accounted for, what they could never prepare for, was the moment you would stop needing them, the moment their chaos no longer fascinated you, the moment their approval became irrelevant. That is when you want. Not when they finally recognized your worth, not when they regretted losing you, not when they realized they would never find another like you, but in the moment you stood up, turned away, and did not look back, because you were never meant to stay. You were not meant to live your life putting out fires you did not start, mending wounds that were never yours to heal. You were not meant to spend your days dimming your light just to make them feel comfortable in their darkness. You were meant for more. And that is what they will never say out loud. That is what will linger in the silence long after you are gone. The knowledge that you were the one thing they could not break. That despite every attempt to make you feel small, despite every effort to make you question yourself, despite every wound they thought would leave you shattered, they will tell themselves stories, of course. They will rewrite history, paint themselves as the misunderstood victim, pretend you were the one who walked away too soon, who gave up too easily. But deep down, in the quiet moments, when there is no one left to impress, no one left to deceive, they will know. They will know that you saw the truth, that you recognized the game for what it was, that you chose yourself in a way they never could. And you will not need to prove anything, because the victory was never in their suffering, it was never in their regret. It was in the freedom you claimed the moment you realized you did not need to stay. And so you left, not in anger, not in pain, but in power, in silence, in victory. There is no need for anger, no need for bitterness, no need to carry the weight of what was never yours to hold. You do not need their apology to heal, nor their recognition to be whole. You do not need to explain yourself, to prove yourself, to wait for the day they finally understand. That day may never come, and it does not matter, because you did what they never expected. You survived. You walked away, not as a victim, not as someone broken beyond repair, but as someone who reclaimed themselves. And that is the greatest victory of all. You were never meant to stay in their world. You were never meant to be trapped in their cycle, bound to their wounds, drowning in their darkness. You were meant to rise, to learn, to see them for who they truly are, and more importantly, to see yourself for who you have always been. Strong, whole, enough. So now you step forward, not looking back, not carrying the echoes of their chaos, not waiting for them to change. You move forward because the story does not end with them. It was never about them. It was always about you. And you are free.